Planning had always been a dangerous thing, a deceptive habit of the humankind, an illusion that we could command time when time had never truly belonged to us. It was almost a superstition, dressed in the fragile veil of rationality, a stubborn belief that our days were not merely borrowed, but gifted to us forever. People planned because they wanted to believe they possessed power, that through sheer will they could tame the course of life, freeze it in a moment, and shape it in their own image. Only when life cut them off without warning, when it swept the ground from beneath their feet and showed them how small they truly were before the unpredictable, did they realize how blindly and naively they walked within their own illusions. Anya couldn't say with certainty whether she had truly planned to return to the hospital that evening. She stood before the front door, half shrouded in darkness, her eyes fixed on the clock, whose hands mercilessly pointed to 8:15. She stared at the dial as if it could give her an answer, as if she could pull from its silence the confirmation of whether she should go or stay. Inside, she was torn apart, reason pulling her back, restlessness pushing her forward. A part of her longed to see him, to make sure he was breathing, that his chest still rose and fell in rhythm, that the heart monitor still recorded the steady pulse of life, because without that proof, the thought of the bullet that had passed through his body became too real, too heavy to bear alone. She knew she could not endure another night without that confirmation. She had to go. Now. At once. The hospital doors opened automatically, and she stepped inside, almost breathless, determined yet terrified by her own resolve. She walked straight toward the reception desk, where two nurses sat, their faces lit by the glow of their monitors. Her heartbeat quickened, pounding against her ribs as if trying to escape. "Good evening," she said softly, forcing her voice into calm, though everything inside her was trembling. One of the nurses looked up and smiled, a professional smile, the kind that offered comfort but revealed nothing beyond the polite boundary of duty. "Good evening, miss. How can I help you? My friend had a scan today. No one's called me with the results yet. Do you happen to know anything?" Anya asked, lowering her gaze, as if that would make her sound more believable. "I'm sorry," the nurse replied calmly, without the slightest hesitation, "but I'm not authorized to share patient information." Anya nodded, her hands clasped tightly behind her back, trying to conceal the tremor spilling into her fingers. "I understand. Thank you anyway. You can call us in the morning. The doctor will have all the results by then." "Thank you," she repeated, then added casually, as if in passing, "Excuse me, by the way. Where's the nearest restroom?" The nurse gestured toward the right-hand corridor. "Straight ahead, then turn right. You'll see the sign. Thank you very much." She started walking, her steps measured and steady, but inside her, a storm raged, her heart beat like something fleeing, every movement a mask over the chaos. She glanced back once more. The nurse was already focused on the screen again. In the next second, Anya slipped down the hallway, but not toward the restroom. Instead of turning right, she turned left, toward the elevator, and pressed the button for the 4th floor. As the doors closed, she held her breath. The numbers ascended slowly on the display. Each floor, a heartbeat, a pulse of fear and hope. The 4th floor was quiet. The corridors were empty, filled only with the distant hum of medical equipment drifting from unseen rooms. She didn't hesitate. She knew the way. Her steps carried her straight to his door. When she reached it, the pressure in her chest became unbearable. Her palm rested on the handle, and with a soft click, the door opened. She froze on the threshold. Her legs felt rooted to the floor. There he was. Fred lay half upright, his face pale yet peaceful, touched by a shadow of pain that lingered even in sleep. His chest rose and fell in the rhythm of life, and that sight alone was all she needed. Bandages wrapped his shoulder, stretched beneath his neck and down his back, hiding the wound that had almost taken his future away. Anya quietly drew a chair closer to the bed and sat down. She didn't speak. She simply looked at his face, tracing every feature as though memorizing it all over again. In sleep, he looked different, almost unfamiliar, stripped of the anger and shadows that had once divided them. There was a peace in him, the peace of a man who had survived, and for her, that was proof enough to keep holding on. She listened to the silence, broken only by the steady, mechanical rhythm of the heart monitor, the sound of life persisting. Her hands couldn't stay still. Her fingers twisted and fidgeted. Her nail grazed her teeth before she quickly dropped it, ashamed of her own lack of control. She rose, pacing aimlessly, as if movement could calm the storm inside. Then she stopped and looked at him. Not aloud, but in a whisper, almost a prayer, she let the words escape. I have to be here for you. I know you were an idiot. I know. But you still matter to me. It wasn't the plea of a woman making excuses to stay. It was the raw truth of someone who had never truly left. The anger still lived in her. She couldn't forget how he had abandoned her when she needed him most. Neither her nor their baby. That wound reopened sometimes, whenever the past crept too close. She thought she had forgiven him, but it was never easy to erase the traces of pain, the kind that lingers long after time has passed. She shook her head, as if to silence the argument inside herself. It didn't matter. He needed her, and she would be there. It was the only way she knew how to love. She took off her coat, carefully draped it over the back of the chair, and sat again. Her gaze remained fixed on his face, following every twitch and every hint of movement, as if each breath he took was her own. Then he stirred restlessly, his brows knit together, his teeth caught the inside of his lip, and his lashes trembled. His hand, still weak, moved instinctively toward his forehead, but before it reached, it stopped in the warmth of her touch. Her hand, steady yet tender, closed around his, and in that instant, he felt that this touch belonged to a place he knew. It was warm, safe, familiar, and despite the pain pulsing through his body and the weight of the IV tethering him to the bed, that touch was the only thing that felt right, the only thing that gave meaning back to him. Easy. Her voice, her whisper, was like the echo of a dream long forgotten, yet achingly near. Fred, she said again, softly, her voice carrying the exhaustion of a soul that had wandered too far and the quiet relief that began to untie the knots in her chest. She watched as he opened his eyes, blinking himself slowly into wakefulness, and saw a faint smile form on his lips, weak, fragile, but genuine. A smile that stirred both unease and peace within her. Anya. Her name, spoken in that hoarse, breath-worn voice, awakened something buried deep inside her, something so fierce that her heart stumbled, as if it had forgotten how to breathe. The blanket slid down his chest as he tried to sit up, and she moved instinctively to help him, adjusting the pillows behind his back, giving him the steadiness he hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. She handed him a glass of water, and watched as his hands, surprisingly strong despite the weakness, tightened around the glass, muscles flexing, body resisting surrender. She wanted to escape the storm of emotions his every movement summoned within her, so she took the glass away quickly. But when she turned back, she found him gazing at the window, as if the night outside held a meaning she had yet to understand. "It's night out there," he murmured, and in that look, in that silence, there was something reaching beyond the sterile walls of that room, something remembering the world that kept turning, even when he couldn't. "Looks like you've slept through the entire afternoon," she replied softly, letting his gaze drift back to her. "You're here," he said, with wonder and a calm so pure it was almost childlike, as if he couldn't quite believe his own eyes. Anya smiled faintly, with a smile that was more comfort than jest. "I am. Even past visiting hours." Her tone was calm, though beneath it hummed a quiet joy she could not disguise. "How did you even get in?" he asked, and there was both curiosity and tenderness in his voice, a tone she hadn't heard in years. "I have my ways," she said, and the shadow of a familiar smile flickered in his eyes. "You should be careful with those ways. You're talking to a police officer," he teased. "Right. A police officer who desperately needs something for his headache," she shot back, playful and composed. He laughed through his fatigue, a thin, tired sound, yet enough to remind her of the man he used to be, the one she once knew better than herself. "Anya, you are unbearably charming," he said, and she arched an eyebrow, a glimmer of mischief lighting her eyes. "Oh, I'm the trouble here? Take a look at where you've ended up." He tried to look serious, rolling his eyes, but laughter broke through again, soft, unguarded, liberating. "I just hope no nurse or doctor walks in, or you'll witness my grand expulsion from this luxury resort." Her quiet laugh filled the space between them, warm and light, and he looked at her almost in disbelief, as if rediscovering a face he had long forgotten. "I haven't seen this version of you in years," he said quietly. "I'd almost forgotten she existed." She met his eyes and whispered, "Maybe this Anya is exactly the one who can help with your headache." Her small, calm fingers rested in his, and he held them with surprising gentleness, though his grip spoke of someone clinging to the last thing he still understood. "Tell me, Fred, how do you really feel?" she asked, her voice lowering, heavy with care and hesitation, carrying both fear and compassion. "My head's giving me hell, but I'll be fine, Anya," he answered quietly. The pressure of his fingers on hers was the only truth she needed. "Did you come alone?" "I did." "Where are the kids?" A smile touched her lips, soft, genuine, the kind that belonged only to him. "That's the sweetest name you've called them. It's the cutest thing I've heard in a long time." "The kids are with your parents, with Gertrude and Charles. Both of them." His eyes widened, disbelief flickering in his voice. "Excuse me? How long have I been asleep, for God's sake?" She laughed again, this time with a trace of irony. "You're not dreaming, Fred, and I'm not sleepwalking. Matilda and Kai are together, at your parents' house." His next words were quiet, so quiet, but the weight they carried was immense. "Anya, I'm sorry." In those words lay every year of pain, every night of doubt, every wound he had ever caused her. Never before had they sounded so true. She pulled him gently against her carefully, as though holding something both fragile and sacred, something that belonged to them both but could shatter with a breath. He was broader, stronger, yet in that moment he felt breakable, like a child seeking shelter. She didn't speak. She only held him, letting silence speak for them. His arms wrapped around her waist, tight, desperate, and still, she did not move away. Her stillness was his refuge. His face found the curve of her neck, and she felt the warmth and salt of his tears, real, burning tears, not of pride, but confession. The tears of a man who had finally broken. "Shh," she whispered, her voice soft and steady, like wind brushing the trees before a storm. Her fingers moved gently through his hair, soothing him, offering the kind of comfort words could never reach. "I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness," he murmured through the tremor of his breath. His voice was cracked, every word dragging through the wreckage inside him. "I don't deserve it. I took everything we had and destroyed it. I trampled your feelings as if they were nothing. And then I told you that you were nothing." Her eyes closed, her face tightened. The words stirred old wounds, reopened scars she had learned to carry in silence. The memories returned, the nights she couldn't rise from bed, the evenings spent staring at the ceiling, asking where she had gone wrong, the hollow days when she felt abandoned and unseen. All of it came rushing back, but she stayed steady. "Yes," she said slowly, weighing each word. You did all of that." She drew in a long breath, her voice quieter now, but stronger. "But someday, when you're alone with yourself, you'll have to find forgiveness there first. Without it, you won't be able to go on. And for the most part, I already have forgiven you. I truly have. But don't mistake that for forgetting. Some words can never be forgotten." He shook his head, as if he believed her, yet as if every word cut into him. "I wouldn't expect otherwise," he said quietly, in the voice of a man who knew that relief and punishment are one and the same. She looked at him. There was no weakness in her voice, no nostalgia, no trace of indulgence. "And know this," she said, "what I'm telling you isn't weakness. It's not a remnant of old feelings, nor an attempt to bring back what's gone. I'm not a woman who forgets, Fred. I'm still angry, but I don't want to stay trapped inside that anger. I don't want to be the one who makes you kneel just to have a place in my life, or in hers." He held her tighter then, in that silence that spoke louder than words. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice fractured, yet proud, comforted, yet in despair. "I was terrible to you. And you've always been the part of me that was worth something, the best part of me." Anya was quiet for a long time before she found the strength to say what had weighed inside her, words that were both a stone and a release. "I doubt that," she said softly, her voice carrying bitterness and weariness, but also a rare warmth. "You refused to accept that Kai was yours. You wanted to disappear, to close your eyes and ears to the truth because you were afraid for your marriage, afraid of the consequences of your own mistake. And I can't completely hate you for that, no matter how much I wish I could. Only a little." She lifted her hand and pinched her fingers together, showing him just how little, with a gesture both serious and childishly simple. "But learn from it, Fred. Learn from the way you treated me. Don't walk the same path again. Don't make the same wounds twice." He lowered his gaze, fighting the guilt that now sat on his shoulders like a weight of lead. "I'm learning, and I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry," he said, each word tense and painfully sincere, as if they cut through him on their way out. It wasn't an empty apology, not one of those offered lightly, forgotten as soon as they passed the lips, but a confession from a man who knew he could never undo the past, yet still wanted to build a bridge toward whatever was left of them. "I know you're sorry," she said calmly, her eyes soft but steady. and I know you mean every word you've said." For a moment, he closed his eyes, as if struck by the silence between them. Then he whispered words that haunted him most. I don't understand how you could let me back into your life, after everything I've done to you." Anya studied him for a few seconds, as though she was trying to read all the things he had never said in the lines of his face. Then she said gently but firmly, "That's enough for now. I don't want to talk about it tonight. It's time for you to be quiet," she added, with a faint smile, one that carried both sorrow and hope, and placed her hand on his chest. "And to heal. For yourself. For us. For your daughters." "How do you manage to be so strong?" he asked, and in his voice there was nothing but admiration, and the quiet fear of losing her again, as a woman and as a refuge. "Because I have to be," she said, lowering her eyes, but not the strength in her voice. "Life taught me to be that way." Fred felt his throat tighten. "You have no idea how much you mean to me, Anya." She smiled a soft, tired smile, like someone who knows that a smile can hide pain, yet still offer warmth. "Get better first," she said quietly. "Then you can show me." "And what if I show you now?" he murmured, before leaning in and pressing his lips to hers. The kiss was quick, almost desperate, yet freeing, as if he wanted to erase years of silence and emptiness that stood between them. Anya didn't move. Her hands found their way to his shoulders, as though they had been searching for them all her life, and time ceased to exist. 10 seconds, a minute, maybe a lifetime. It all melted into that touch. Then she slowly drew back, though every part of her wanted to stay. She looked into his eyes, cupped his face in her hands, and kissed him once more, this time softer, slower, and with a silence that carried everything she couldn't say aloud. The room sank into calm, and for a while, there was nothing but the two of them, as if the world couldn't reach them. Fred whispered her name, his voice tender, stripped bare of all pretenses, and kissed her again, quietly, gently, afraid that she might vanish if he moved too fast. "I'm really glad you're here with me." "So am I," she replied, with a sigh that was both relief and confession. "And it's all right. I knew what I was getting into. I chose this myself, and I'll bear the consequences myself." He smiled, though the smile stayed hidden in the quiet. "I didn't expect this," he admitted, letting his pride fade in the light of what he now felt. "Don't take it the wrong way, but this is the best part of my day." And it was true. He hadn't imagined that he would open his eyes to see Anya by his bedside, let alone feel her breath and her touch again. "I've missed you. I've missed you too," she whispered, as a faint blush rose to her cheeks. There was more she wanted to say, but the words remained tied somewhere in her throat, waiting for a safer moment. "How are you, Anya?" he asked, almost in a whisper, as if afraid of her answer. "I'm fine," she lied, but her eyes betrayed her. "Really?" he said, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face, his fingers trembling as they lingered at the ends. She lowered her gaze. "No," she admitted at last. "I've had good days. And the other kind. The not-so-good ones." "What happened on those other days?" She drew in a deep breath, as if each word tore a piece from her heart. "I faced the consequences of my choices alone. I raised a child who can't hear, alone. I learned to speak with my hands. I learned life during days, cried through nights. There were moments when I wanted to run, to disappear, but the escape never came. In the end, I learned to live with it, in my own way. But you weren't there." Her voice trembled, her eyes closed, as though she was begging for the pain of the past to finally end. "Anya," Fred murmured, his voice thick with guilt. "If only I could hold you every day and try to fix what I destroyed." He hesitated, reaching for words, as if they were his last chance. "Do you think we could try again? More than anything, I want to be Kai's father, the one who protects her, hugs her, tucks her in every night, wakes her every morning, the one she feels safe with." "I'm afraid," she confessed, her voice heavy with both pain and truth. "I'm afraid she might come to love you, and that you'd leave again. And her heart already has enough cracks without that. You don't know how many days and nights I spend thinking about her," he said wearily. "From the moment I saw her crying at the stadium, I haven't been the same. I can't function. I can't think straight. Anya, I want her in my life. I want to be a part of her world." A fragile smile appeared on her face, delicate and precious, like the first light of dawn after a long night. "When you talk to me like this, you know I'll believe you. because part of me still wants to believe you mean every word. I do, he said, leaning in to kiss her again, this time slower, surer, carrying a promise yet to be fulfilled. Do you ever think of me? He asked after a quiet moment. Her cheeks flushed, and she admitted shyly, yes, I do. If you didn't, he said with a faint smile, your days would be terribly boring. She laughed softly and briefly, but the smile faded almost as quickly as it came. They're only boring when I'm alone, she said. But with Kai, she always finds a way to bring out the best in me. I don't even know how she does it, but she does, every single time. Tell me about our little girl, he asked, watching her with such intent that every word she spoke left a deeper mark on him than the pain in his chest ever could. Anya rested her cheek against his palm, kissed it softly, and continued. She has such a strong spirit, and she's only 7. Her voice grew gentler as she spoke, and Fred absorbed every word as though each one gave him back a little more breath. She told him about her struggles, about life without a family that had rejected her and erased her from their memory as if she had never existed. She wasn't even sure they knew about Kai, and that thought hurt her and filled her with anger at the same time. She told him about their daughter's condition, about the changes that had come since they left Leeds. Then she paused, whispering, but Fred, there are days when all she wants is to have both her mom and dad by her side. On those days, I try to be both. I try so hard, but I can't do it. She's not little enough anymore to not understand that something's missing. And no matter how hard I try to be her father too, I can't fill that emptiness. Sometimes she shuts herself off, and that's when I know it hurts her the most. Fred sat hunched over, feeling as if someone had poured a bucket of heavy earth over him. Anya's words circled in his mind, like relentless verdicts, judgments on everything he had been, everything he had done, and no hand, not his nor anyone else's, could lift that weight. He covered his face with his hands, but even they couldn't hide the raw, exposed shame that burned to the core, leaving no shelter and no comfort. Anya gently ran her hand over his arm, trying to offer comfort deeper than words could ever reach. She didn't deserve what I put her through. I hurt a child. I hurt my child. His voice was hollow, almost colorless, broken, carrying the heaviness of guilt and sorrow without end, as if his very soul had cracked under its own weight. Even if one day she somehow finds the strength to forgive me, I'll never be able to forgive myself. You're being too hard on yourself, she tried to say, her voice calm, but filled with that quiet strength and warmth that could cover at least part of his pain. No, I deserve this, he answered softly, his tone heavy, his breath caught in the grip of guilt pressing down on every part of him. Fred. Anya moved closer, her large eyes filled with compassion and sorrow, and she wrapped his arms around himself, giving him what he needed more than anything. A hug that could hold both the world and the pain, offering at least a flicker of relief. We'll be all right, she whispered, her presence shining like a beacon in the storm of his emotions. She doesn't even know I'm her father, he said, his voice laced with sorrow and the quiet terror of missed moments that would never return. But she will, Anya said gently. Give yourself a chance, and give her one too. She won't run into your arms the next time she sees you, but you can start building something with her, slowly. Her tone was patient and resolute, carrying a fragile hope, improbable yet alive. His lips found hers again, joining in a kiss that was tender, careful, cautious, as if in that touch he sought both strength and fragility. Then Anya whispered, and now I have to go to her, pausing, her gaze meeting his, her voice trembling with hope that had barely survived the shadows of fear. You and I, we were happy once, weren't we, Fred? We were, he answered instantly, without thinking, because within the small world they had once shared, far from everything else, he was certain they had truly been happy. The questions why they'd settled for less than what they had, and why they'd let it fall apart, spun in his mind. He didn't want to say them aloud. To admit the senselessness of their separation would only bring a new pain he wasn't strong enough to bear. We loved each other. I didn't imagine that, did I? She asked, almost losing control, seeking confirmation for something she already knew. We loved each other, he said, and he still did. But he couldn't tell her. He feared that every word he spoke might wound her further, even if it might also bring peace. Ephemera 94, he added, trying to slip a spark of light into the heaviness of the moment. Her eyes widened suddenly. Excuse me? That's you, isn't it? He asked softly, a faint smile playing at his lips as his thumb brushed lightly beneath her chin. Ephemera 94. A quiet breath of joy escaped through her smile, so soft it was barely audible, as she bit her lip gently, trying to hide the truth her heart had already confessed. You've already proven you have your connections in the Metropolitan Police, and now you're playing detective too? Honestly, Fred, I knew it was you. I knew it all along. I spent so many nights awake, turning it over in my head, trying to figure out if it was you behind that account. I won't ask you anything, she whispered, her voice tender and warm, at once subdued and unburdened. Fred moved carefully, straightening up as much as his body allowed, leaning toward her, his hand reaching for her waist, as if to hold her there, to shield her from the world within his arms. Don't go. They'll throw me out the window, Fred, she said with a faint laugh. But her eyes were filled with a softness that could melt every one of his fears. Fred smiled, but the smile twisted into a grimace of pain as his wound began to throb again. Instinctively, he pressed his hand against it, and Anya, alarmed, stood and helped him settle back down. Easy. You need to rest now. It's time to recover, all right? But he didn't let go of her. But I don't even know why I came, she said, her voice barely audible among the shadows of the room. My legs just brought me here. I'm not complaining, he murmured softly, almost in a whisper, his words filling the space with warmth and calm. She paused, took a deep breath, and whispered, Fred, there's something I need to tell you. I can't keep it to myself anymore. I know this is probably the worst possible moment, but your friend Lewis told me about Rosalie. He looked down at his scratched knuckles, searching for a word he didn't know how to say, while his heart pounded, aware that everything was changing. I'm sorry, truly. I didn't know. We'll talk about it when the time comes. But just know this. You're not alone. I'm here, she said, her voice both shelter and light, trying to lift the weight that pressed so heavily upon him. The burden of his years, his mistakes, and all the too late realizations fell on him like an avalanche, and if it had been physical, it would have shattered the hospital floor and buried him deep beneath it. He was speechless, because no word could ease the weight, not for him nor for her. Maybe I really should go now, she said softly, more to herself than to him, as if trying to survive the moment. No, he replied quickly, desperation spilling into his voice. Just stay a little longer. A moment. One moment. She leaned toward him and pressed a kiss to his forehead, soft, almost silk-like. I'm just indescribably glad you're alive. And don't worry about the kids. They're safe. Another gentle kiss followed as she stepped back, but Fred caught her hand, pulled it to his lips, and kissed it, not with passion, but with memory and warmth. Happy now? She asked. More than I can admit, he said. Anya smiled faintly, fastened her coat, and with a small wave, slipped out through the door before he could voice any protest. His gaze stayed fixed on the place where she had disappeared, aware that she was already beginning to slip away from him again. His thoughts returned to that night, to the love they had shared, to the moments with Rosalie that now seemed meaningless beside the name that echoed in his heart. Anya. She was the only one he wanted to keep.